Hey everyone, welcome back to Iraqi Dinar Updates, the place where we break down everything you need to know about Iraq's currency and its potential future. Today, we're diving into something that a lot of people are curious about, and honestly, it's one of the biggest sources of confusion when it comes to the Iraqi dinar. We're talking about the possibility of revaluation, the real meaning behind it, and the often cited claim that the dinar could skyrocket from around 0.00076 all the way up to $3.22. That's a massive increase. We're talking about more than a 4,000% rise in value. Now the question is, has any country ever done something like this before? Let's get real for a second. When countries revalue their currency, they usually do one thing across the board: they remove zeros. They cut them off. It's called a redenomination. Why? Because it's the easiest way to adjust a currency's value without shocking the economy too much. It's a psychological tactic just as much as it is an economic move. When you drop zeros, you make the money look stronger, you simplify accounting, and you try to control inflation, especially if your country has gone through hyperinflation or severe economic instability. Let's look at some real-life examples. Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Turkey. These countries have gone through several rounds of currency reform, and each time, they knocked off zeros. Turkey, for instance, lopped off 6 zeros in 2005. They didn't suddenly say, hey, one Turkish lira is now worth several US dollars. They restructured it so that 1 million old lira became 1 new lira. That's not a gain in value, it's just rebalancing. It's important to understand the distinction. Now let's get back to Iraq. Right now, as of the time of this recording, the Iraqi dinar trades at around 0.00076 US dollars. So when people talk about it jumping to $3.22 overnight, that's a 4,000% increase in value. Let that number sink in. 4,000%. That's not just a big leap up, it's unprecedented. No country in modern history has pulled that off while keeping all the zeros. That's the key part people often miss. You can revalue, sure. You can make changes, bring stability, issue a new series of notes, or even adjust the peg against the dollar. But revaluing by that much without redenomination? That has never happened. It would mean Iraq's economy would suddenly need to justify a currency that's worth more than the US dollar, more than the British pound, more than nearly any currency in the world. And you've got to ask yourself, what kind of economic force or financial backing would allow that to happen? Iraq has massive oil reserves, no doubt. They have potential, yes. But even potential needs stability, growth, reforms, and most importantly a time. And that's not to say the dinar can't increase in value. Of course it can. Iraq has been working on monetary reforms, and the Central Bank of Iraq has made it clear that it wants to create a more stable and functional currency system. But there's a big difference between a gradual appreciation of the dinar, say, moving from 0.00076 to 0.001, or maybe even 0.01 over time, versus a sudden jump to over $3.00. That kind of spike would cause major disruptions domestically and internationally. The math doesn't work unless the entire financial structure of the country and its economy radically changes overnight. If such a massive revaluation were to happen, Iraq would effectively be creating trillions in value from thin air. It would have to back that valuation with hard assets, or international reserves, or some kind of credible economic power. Otherwise, the global financial system would laugh it off. Think about it, if you could just change the value of your currency from pennies to dollars by decree, wouldn't every country do it? Wouldn't Venezuela just make $1 equal to 5 US dollars and solve all their problems overnight? The truth is, these kinds of changes don't happen in isolation. Revaluations are part of a larger strategy, and they're usually backed by macroeconomic fundamentals: GDP growth, low inflation, foreign exchange reserves, political stability, trade surpluses, and so on. Iraq is still in the process of rebuilding all of that. They've made progress, no doubt. They're slowly improving security, infrastructure, and even digital banking systems. But they're not at a point where a jump from less than 1/10 of a cent to over $3 would be viable or sustainable. Now I know there are a lot of people out there who are holding dinar, hoping for that big payday. And look, I get it. Hope is powerful. But we also need to stay grounded in reality. There's a difference between being optimistic and being misled. Many people are promoting these huge numbers without giving context, without talking about the history of currency reform or the economic factors that would actually make something like this possible. If Iraq were to remove zeros, let's say they redenominated the dinar and made 1,000 old dinars equal to one new dinar, then yes, they could technically revalue it at $3.22. But in that case, you're not making a profit. You're just trading in your old bills for new ones. That's a neutral event for most people, especially foreign holders. It's not a get-rich-quick situation. So, when we talk about a revaluation that keeps all the zeros, without any redenomination, and increases the value by thousands of %, there's no historical precedent for that. Not in modern economic history. Not one single country has pulled that off. And that's what we have to keep in mind when we hear wild claims and speculation. Always ask, what's the source? What's the logic? What's the precedent? At the end of the day, the Iraqi dinar may very well become stronger over time. It may appreciate gradually as Iraq's economy grows, as oil exports stabilize, as political reforms continue. That's a real possibility. But a sudden leap to $3.22 without touching the zeros. That's a fantasy until proven otherwise. Thanks for watching Iraqi Dinar Updates. If you found this breakdown helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more realistic, fact-based updates on Iraq's economy, the dinar, and everything in between. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and stay grounded.